morning and good afternoon, depending on where you are. Thanks for attending. I do appreciate that. With that, I'd like to welcome you to, as Ashley said, creating custom content for InfraWorks. I know that InfraWorks is still probably something that a lot of you may have only dabbled in. Hopefully you're getting more involved in it. But if that's not the case, this is going to help you walk through creating some custom content. For example, I'm going to create a street sign, but you can create bollards and all sorts of other things that you can use that don't come with InfraWorks. Now you have to take a look at and utilize, in this case, AutoCAD or Civil 3D. That's what we're going to do to get our model or our sign going here. Okay. And like Ashley said, I am Scott Hawker. I am a AEC Solutions Engineer with Hagerman. And just to give a brief update during today's webinar, we're going to cover creating custom 3D blocks to use in InfraWorks. We're going to talk about the ability to export and import to InfraWorks and some of the issues if you're utilizing 2020. Okay, and then we're also going to talk about adding it to the style palette, and then if we have time, we'll talk about sharing your palette with others so that other folks have access to your custom content. Okay, now what I'm going to do is we're going to get to this point here. Here's the custom sign that we're going to go ahead and create. Hopefully everybody can see that. And let me just do a real quick options here. I don't much care for that being a color. I prefer black. Okay, so this is what we're going to create here. These do not exist in InfraWorks. You have stop signs and some other things like that. Now, again, you don't have to use them to create signs. This is just an example that I put together because I've actually created a couple other models in InfraWorks, and I'll show you those as well. Okay, so what we want to do first, though, is this. We want to go ahead and create a brand new drawing file. We don't want anything in it. Okay, so even though I'm in Civil 3D, I'm going to go ahead and create a new file. It's going to prompt me to select my template. Now, this is just you can do this in AutoCAD. It's just a simple set of AutoCAD commands and a little bit of 3D modeling. Okay, so I don't really need the styles. I don't need the settings. I don't need all those layers that come with the default Civil 3D template. So I could go up and select AutoCAD template, select the acad.dwt file. That's completely acceptable. Okay, I prefer to come down and right here next to file name, I'm going to click the pull down next to open, and I'm going to go ahead and open with no template Imperial. Because what this does is it gives us a completely clean drawing file. There are no blocks, there are no line types until I load them. Okay, there's absolutely nothing in here. We'll check our layers here. Layer 0. Perfect. Okay, now what I did first is I went ahead and did a little homework on signposts and signs in general. Now this is the MUTCD R7-8, which is the accessible parking sign. And you can find the information here. I did a little research on the signpost. I went ahead and got a little fancy for y'all. And I did a U-channel post instead of just a simple round post. You can do that as well. The principle is going to be the same. Okay, so found a cut sheet for my U-channel. And then I also found on the MUTCD website, or the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices, it's the Bible for signage for the most part. Okay, and I found that the size is this. And this is going to be important, and we're going to need to remember this as we go forward. It is 1 foot in width and 1.5 feet in also requires filleted corners, and those fillets are 0.125 feet. Because this is civil, everything is going to be in feet, okay? So what we've done is simple drafting, okay? Created a boundary, created a polyline from a rectangle, filleted the corners. Okay, hopefully at this juncture you know how to do that, so we're going to skip that, and that's why I kind of got us to this point. Okay, and like I said earlier, the process that we're seeing and that we're about to embark on is going to be very similar for other objects as well. Okay. Awesome. So with that, I'm going to swap on over. Well, actually, I'm going to do one thing first. I'm going to turn my layers off for my dimensions. I don't need to see those anymore. Okay. So I want to start taking a look at this, not in a 2D top view, but really a three-dimensional kind of isometric view. So, excuse me, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hold down the Shift key and the mouse wheel, and that allows me to move around and kind of orbit back and forth. Okay, because what I want to do is I'm going to create a 3D solid here. All right, so we're going to get to this point here. Now, before we can go ahead and create the solid, we're going to have to move into our workspace. So I'm going to hit the quick access toolbar here in the top left corner. I'm going to select 3D modeling instead of Civil 3D. I'm going to select that. It opens up and changes to the 3D modeling ribbon. Now we don't need our tool palette quite yet, so we're going to go ahead and close that. Okay. So now what I want to do is this. I want to go ahead and I need to give some height to everything here. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and use the extrude command. So the extrude command is on your home tab, modeling panel. So we're going to invoke the command. It prompts us to select the solid or the object. So that's what we have right there. And now I can move and give it some height. Okay. See how it's taking all of the post with it. So at this juncture, we're just going to say 7 feet. That's high. Well, 7. That's high enough. Okay. So now we actually have our posts, and you can see if you kind of swing around that it's definitely there. Okay. So now what I also need to do is extrude my sign. We're going to start the same command. We're going to select our sign. We'll hit enter, and we're going to go upwards. And the signs aren't too awfully thick. We're going to give this one a height of 0.025. Okay. And enter. So there we see our sign with some depth, some thickness, and our post with a 7-foot height. Okay. Now I'm going to switch back over here to a drawing that we've already done. The difference between the previous drawing is that it says 2D wireframe here. I want to start taking a look at this in 3 dimensions. So once I came into this drawing here, I simply changed the visual style from 2D wireframe to conceptual, because now I can actually see that there's thickness to my sign and my post. Now you can use the shift and the mouse wheel. You can also use your view cube here in the corner if you care to. Whatever you choose is fine. Okay, and let's get us back somewhere like so. Okay. Now, because we're in conceptual view, when we select an object, we're going to get what's called a gizmo. So I'm going to roll down. I'm going to select my signage because it's laying flat on the ground. I need to roll it up so that I can place it on my signpost. Okay, so if I select that, you'll see a gizmo very similar to what you'll find in InfraWorks. You've got change in height and change in directions in X and Y. Okay, I'm going to select the gizmo, and then I'm going to right click because I want to rotate this object. And if you'll notice, I get a completely different set. This is the rotation gizmos. I want to use the red ribbon here. There's a red, a green, and a blue. So I'm going to select the red because that allows me to go ahead and literally rotate in 360 degrees along that axis there. What I really need is it to be completely straight up. I'm going to turn my ortho on by hitting F8 on the keyboard, and I'm simply going to left mouse click and hit escape. So here's our post, and here's our signage. What I need to do now is I need to go ahead and move the sign. We'll go back and we'll go to drafting and annotation. We'll select move. We'll select our sign. I'm going to zoom in a little bit, and I'm going to select the midpoint. Oh, I've got that select. There we go. The midpoint of the back of the sign. Okay. I'm going to turn my ortho off, and I'm going to bring it up, kind of manipulate it around a little bit, and we'll just eyeball it for the time being. Okay. But I do want to place it right here at the midpoint of my channel. Okay. Because now that I have it on there, I can go ahead and just use the move command, grab the back of the sign and go perpendicular to the front. And I'm going to get a situation like this. Okay. Now what I've done here is I've shortened up the signage a little bit. So once I had that, and I apologize, should have grabbed it here. Okay. And where should be getting my properties panel. Don't see it. Maybe it's over here. Hidden. Nope. But all I did was I selected the object, right click for properties. My properties panel is hidden behind something over here. And in my properties, I just changed the height from 7 feet to 6.5 feet. So I've got something that looks more realistic like so. Okay. So what I need to do now is I want to add my materials. Because I want this to look the way that's going to look in the real world. I need to give it some information here. I want the post to be green. I need the sign to be white. And then I also need to add the image on the front of the sign that says reserved parking, accessible, etc. Okay, so I'm going to change the visual style instead of conceptual to realistic. And it's going to show up gray, no problems there. Okay, now what I need to do is I need to go back and change my workspace back to 3D modeling. And I could have just typed the M for move instead of changing workspaces, um, but that's kind of a individual preference. So what I want to do now is I'm going to go to my Visualize tab. I'm going to select my Materials panel, and I've got my Materials browser right here. So let me drag this over. Okay. Now, if you'll take a look, these are awfully small. You've got thumbnails here, and you've got thumbnails here. What I like to do is make sure that they're actually kind of a size that we can take a look at, and it'll help us out, especially for some of us, like myself, who are visually impaired, so to speak, and have a hard time seeing smaller things at the juncture of life that we're at. So what I want to do, instead of a list, I'm going to select under Document Materials All. So this is what's included in the document, which is the DWG. I want to see those nice and large. I want a thumbnail. I want to make sure that it's a fairly good size. You do have options, so you can change the size if you like, but again, just a preference. Now, the Autodesk library is already installed. That comes with your software, and it is installed during your default software installation. So you will have these as well. I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing here. I'm going to go thumbnail, and I'm going to make sure the size is a fairly good size there. So that's good. I'm okay with that. Now, because this is a palette, it can be resized however you would like. It can be docked, so you can keep it open at all times if you need to. Okay. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to search for a material, or paint in this case, to add to my drawing file. So I want my post to be green. I'm going to move up into my search. I'm going to type in green and enter, and it's going to go ahead and take a look. We have all sorts of different options here. Okay, probably flaked satin sea green, I don't know, or forest green, I guess we'll probably go with. I typically like to have that or either dark green here. But if you would like, you can always come over and search per the material. Okay, there are different types of glazing, different types of materials here. Okay, I'm going to add glossy forest green. If I hover over the material, there's a small arrow here, and it says Add Material to the Document. I'm going to select that, and now it's available for me to utilize here in my drawing file. So I'm going to make sure and rotate this just a tad bit. Okay, so to add this to the post, I simply need to select it here, hold the left mouse button down, and move over to my post. Once I get there, release it, and now my post is green, just like it should be. Okay. Now it can be steel. You can select steel. You can select different color paint, etc. It doesn't matter. It's whatever you need to do or need to require in order to get your information set. Okay. All right. Well, now we need to take care of the actual sign itself. We have two sides, obviously, but we need to make it white first. So I'm going to do a search for white. And we're going to see a couple of different ones here. We've got reflective ivory, reflective white, satin. Okay. Now I do have it under metallic. I want to see all of them because the one that I really would like, let's see if I can find it. That one's pretty good. PVC white is probably the best. So let's just see if we can find that PVC white. And there it is. Okay. We're going to click the arrow again to add it to the drawing and make it available for us. We're going to select it. We're going to drag it over to the sign. Now the sign is going to turn kind of a grayish color. Okay. Don't worry. Once we export this, it's going to work out just fine. It'll be white, and it'll be PVC white. Okay. So now we've got white on both sides. Well, I need to add the signage here. Okay. And in order to do that, I went and did a little internet digging. And I searched on my MUTCD, and I found the following image: reserve parking. Okay, so simple save, copy, paste, however you want to get it. Probably best from the MUTCD because they allow you to utilize the information. It is freely available to you. And all I did was I just cropped out any additional text that might be around it. So this is what I've got. Okay, and it's just simply a JPEG file. So what I need to do is I need to create a new material so that this face or this JPEG can be used on my sign. So I'm going to come down into my materials browser, and I'm going to go down to the bottom left corner and click the pull down by the world symbol or the material symbol here. And I want to create a new generic material. So I'm going to select that, and I get another palette. Let me bring this over here. Okay, so the name is default generic. I'm going to rename this to R7-8, just so we know what it is. Okay, now I don't have a color that I'm trying to replicate. I want an image. Once I get to that point, I'm going to click in the image area, and then I'm going to search for my material, or this R7-8 JPEG that I just showed you. Once I get there, I'm going to click open, and it's going to populate. You'll see a preview of the image right there. Now I need to make sure that this is the proper size. That was why it was important that we had the text here initially. Okay, so excuse me, I put in 1 foot width by 1.5 feet high. Excuse me for just a quick second. Thank you. Okay, so that material, we need to click, we'll edit and come back to where we need to be. Okay, so I need to set this up. I don't want it to wrap around or anything like that, and I certainly don't want it to have line work that's not needed, crossing my face and pretty much just putting it in a bad position. So I'm going to select image again. Now that I have the proper image, I have a dialog box. Okay, now in this case we have it in inches. So just be careful when you put in your information. Okay, we want to come down to scale right here. I don't really much care for the position right now, the transformation, or excuse me, the repeating. I do care for the transformation, but the size. The big thing to remember is you want to toggle off locking the aspect ratio, because each of these is going to be independent of the other. So toggle that off. I know my width is going to be 12 inches. And in this case, I have a 1.5 foot sign. So that's going to be 18 inches. Okay. You can see in the preview, kind of centers everything up. I've got 12 inches by 18 inches, which is the size of my sign. Once I get to this point, I can simply close the palette, and now I want to add our 7-8 to the face of this sign. So before I go ahead and do that, I only want it, obviously, on one side. I want white on the other. So I'm going to hold the Control key down. The Control key is going to allow me to place it on the face that I choose. Okay? So I'm going to hold the Control key down. I'm going to select my material. I'm going to drag it till I get to the face, and then I'm going to release. Just like that, I've got reserve parking. I'm going to hold the Shift key down. We'll do a quick orbit. We'll take a look. You can see it's white on the back side. Okay? So we're in good shape. So what I want to do is this. I'm going to scroll myself back over here. And at this juncture, I would go ahead and select Save. I'm going to save this sign somewhere so I always have it. Now, I've already done that. I should have my sign here. There it is. Okay. And it's been saved. Now, here comes the fun part. Autodesk has decided that we should not be able to use the FBX command within Civil 3D 2020 or 2019. Okay, they removed it completely because that's the easiest and the best way in order to do that. Okay, so because of that, if you do a search on your web browser for Autodesk AutoCAD 2019 FBX 64, you will find that there is a zip file that will add an add-on to allow you to do that in 2019. And I'll show you why and what happens in 2020 if you try to utilize the same information. Okay? So if you have 2019, I suggest you keep it if you're creating custom content, at least for the time being. Okay? So I have this. So I've actually run the zip file and I've got everything set up here. So what I want to do is this. I want to export it, but I want to export an FBX file so that my InfraWorks, and not only InfraWorks, but Navisworks, 3ds Max, can open it and read it without any problems. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. So we're going to click Export. And it's going to prompt me for a location. It's going to save it, FBX file. Okay, so we'll save it as R7-8. And we'll just say we'll run with that. We'll save it. We're good. Okay. Now, before we continue, it's imperative that you set your export options. You're going to get a dialog box. Okay. Make sure you have all of the information toggled on here, and you want to embed the textures because that will keep everything intact once we bring it into InfraWorks. I'm going to say OK. Going to take everything out. We're good. So now we can go ahead and put away the civil portion. Okay. And I've got InfraWorks already up here. This is a location that is in Huntsville for a customer that we do some work for. And here's their facility there outside of Huntsville. Okay, you can see there's cars. If you're not familiar with InfraWorks, I actually have 6-inch vertical curb. The light poles are in the proper location, etc. Okay. We also have striping, which can be brought over as well from Civil or AutoCAD. And right now I'm just waiting on the building to be generated so we can drop that in as well. Okay. Now there is some custom content here. There's our reserved parking. Now in this case, I brought it in with a cylindrical pole. Okay, so there's an example of that. All right, now InfraWorks does have different signage available within it. Let's see if I can get to one of them. I guess I haven't placed my stop signs yet. Okay, but you have what's called the style palette. Okay, and you can take a look at different information within the software. You've got different buildings, okay, furniture, custom furniture, etc. I don't know. There's some houses. Okay. I've got vehicles. In this case, I've already added to this. There are not that many vehicles in here that you see. I've added, for example, an FJ Cruiser. I've actually added in James Bond Aston Martin. It's actually at the front here. So you can get a little fun with your models. Okay, so there's the 1963 Aston Martin. I also have on this side the latest Batmobile or the Tumbler. But really, some of our custom here are things like bollards. Okay, we'll see that there are dumpsters and there's electrical boxes and things of that nature, but you still may need to access them. So what we'll do is this. Okay, I want to go ahead and bring in first my FBX of my parking, my R7. -8. Okay. So there's the one that's existing with the cylindrical pole. So under my data sources, I have an XBX file. I can either go here, scroll down. Okay, I can select the appropriate information. In this case, it would be 3D model, but you do have access to 3D objects, Civil 3D, shape files, SDF files, etc. I find that the easiest way to do this is to simply go to your FBX location, select it, and drag it in and release. Now, once you're here, you're going to get the configuration dialog box. Okay, and I need to give this a type. The most common is city furniture for things of this nature. You've got barriers, buildings, trees, roads, etc. But I'm going to go with city furniture. Okay. Now, because I don't have a specific location set, I have to use interactive placing. Okay, so I'm going to select that, and now you'll see my sign. You'll actually see how the shadows fall on it, depending on the location. We'll zoom out just a tad bit. Okay, rotate it up, and we'll pop it somewhere here for comparisons. We'll double click. Okay, and before I close and refresh, I do want to take a look. Nothing under tooltips, but here's my 3D model. Okay, that's exactly what I want right there. Perfect. Came in right, came in with my materials, came in with my face, and if I swirl it around, came in with my white background. Now, one thing you want to take a look at is your model handling. How do you want the model to utilize this sign? For example, auto adjust. If my view is very far out, I will not see the sign and I won't be able to definitely read reserved parking. Okay, the closer I zoom in, the more it displays, etc. So that's great for keeping everything a little bit smaller, because InfraWorks models can get to be pretty darn large if you've ever created one. Okay, so you can change it. Auto adjust is the most common, but you can change it to direct display, which means that the resolution will be the same no matter where you're at. I'm going to close and refresh. We're going to pop ourselves out just a little bit. We'll zoom in. Needs to be rotated. Now we could take care of that once we were inside our civil, but we're not going to do that for today. Okay. But there's our sign. Okay, this one's a little bit shorter, but you can see I actually put the holes in there. We skipped that portion just because it's a little intensive there. Okay, but we did not have a reserve parking sign named R7-8. Okay. We also didn't have bollards. We didn't have some other things in here as well. So I created these so I could finish off the model and be as accurate as possible. Okay. So the nice thing about creating these is you really only need the AutoCAD functionality. I use Civil 3D because the functionality is already in there. It's built on the AutoCAD platform. So I'm already good to go. Okay. Now what I want to do is this. I want to add this to the model, specifically in my style palette. Okay. Because I want to be able to drag and drop if I need to. So I'm going to find the proper location, maybe highway. It doesn't matter where you want to put it. Here we go, signs. Okay. So this is what I called the first one, handicapped parking. Okay. I want to add this. So whoever opens up this model is going to have access to it and be able to drag and drop. I want to click plus. Okay. Now it wants me to specify the model. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the location, R7-8, and I'm going to click on open. Okay. We'll see down here that there is our model. Now you can still do the same thing here for your simplification in your handling when you're bringing this in. Okay. The anchor point was at 0, 0 when we created the block. So it's going to come in at the base of the sign, which is what we want. Okay. Now, what's going to happen is this. I'm going to say, okay, and it should go ahead. There it is. Pop it in, new 3D model. We're just going to call it R7-8 and enter. It's going to take a second. There it is. Okay. So if I want to bring this into the file, simply click on it, excuse me, one time, or drag it in. Hold on. Or drag it in. Maybe we're not going to get to drag it in. Not quite sure why it's not bringing it in, but you can. Now, the issue is going to be this. Okay. Because InfraWorks is technically based on metrics, we've got to do a change in size. Okay. Now I've already got another one here. I'm putting together a model of a Little League field. Okay. So I've already got a foul pole that I created in the same type of situation. Okay. So we're just going to roll in. Here's my foul pole. Okay. Now, that's the problem. City furniture, okay, is in the wrong location. Style palette was correct. Bring it in is here. So here's my foul pole, okay, and I double click on it, and it comes in perfectly. There it is, okay? However, in my style palette, I had to make some changes, okay? And we're going to just double click on that. We should be able to right click, go to properties, and take a look here. No. Let's see, where did I put this one at? City furniture. There it is, foul pole. So if I double click on that, okay, here's the information. Now, because I brought it from civil, and technically InfraWorks is metric, I needed to make the conversion. See how I have 0.30480? That's the conversion from the metric, or excuse me, from the civil to the metric. Because if this was not the case, and it was 1, like we are used to, okay, it would come in extremely large. So if you ever create something that is custom, and when it comes in, you can see that it's way larger than it needs to be, you probably need to come back into your style palette, change scaling. And okay. And once you're there, it'll come in at the proper height. It does not change the origin. All it does is changes the scaling for your X, your Y, and your Z so that it shows up with the proper dimensions. Okay. Now, once you get a situation like this, when you're done, okay, so we'll actually come back here. We'll go to Add Tran, the one that we had earlier. Zoom in. Oh, that wasn't the one, but this will work out just fine. Yeah, we'll just stay here. So this belongs, the foul pole belongs in this model. Okay. Because it's in my style palette under city furniture, okay, I can go ahead when it comes time to access, I can actually go ahead and save these into a different location. And it creates a JSON file. So it exports it out. It allows you to place it in a location where everyone else can have access to it. And then they're able to import that JSON file. And then they'll have access to that file pool. Okay. So with that, that is how you create custom content from within AutoCAD or Civil 3D for your InfraWorks models. Does anybody have any questions, Ashley?
We haven't had any yet, but we can hold it open for a few minutes.
Sure. Absolutely.
While we're waiting, I will let you know that if you think of additional questions later, you can just reply to that confirmation or reminder email you received from GoToWebinar, and we can get those to Scott or your sales rep to get your questions answered. Once again, as we close down today, there will be a pop-up with that survey, and we ask that you take a few moments to fill that out for us. It's helpful to us. And I don't see anything still, so I guess we will conclude our broadcast. Have a great day, and thanks for coming, everybody.
Thank you.